Computer. Right. We are recording. Welcome to the Dr. Tom Show. Today, I am very excited to have someone I call a friend, although he's on the other side of the world and we've only ever seen each other, I think, in person once. But he really, he does what he says. We've just been talking before the show, and this man really does do what he says. He's dedicated his life to spreading the truth of chiropractic. So much so, he's taken himself to having the #1 podcast in the chiropractic space, Chiro Hustle. He's a master marketer and scheduler for thousands of practices around the States. And he's just launched a new podcast, Influencer Authority. And in his spare time, he likes to do reading, he likes to walk, and he likes to get into the gym. But we're going to talk a little bit more about how actually he's turned his work into his hobby, and spare time maybe is a slight illusion. But Jim Chester, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you here today.
Pleasure to be here and light a fire with you.
Mate, we are really going to light a fire today. I am genuinely very excited. I've had to wait till 3 o'clock till you could get out of bed over there and join time zones and connect. But it's been a good day in anticipation. My first question to you is, why did you decide to dedicate your life to chiropractic, not being a chiropractor yourself?
You know, it opens up a really interesting story. I got out of college with a degree in journalism and marketing back in 2002. And I was working in the newspaper industry as a sports reporter. And I was also working for another daily or weekly reader in the Quad Cities where I grew up in Davenport, Iowa. And I was called the River Cities Reader. And I was doing arts and entertainment writing. And I was working for both of these newspapers. And I realized that there was limited truth in what was being published, not just in the sports world, but from all editorial and all news reporting. And I just kind of fell out of love with the thing I went to school for and what I went to become a professional for, and stepped away. And that was probably about what I graduated at 22 years of age. And I popped in to do that for about 3 years. So it puts me about 25 or 24-ish. And I stepped away and I started doing carpentry. I started framing houses because I was desperate for a job, because one day I came back from my gig at an event, and I took the longest lunch break in history. I never came back. And I reached out to one of my friends who owned a construction company. I was like, "Hey, James, do you got any work? I could really use some work." And he's like, "Well, what are you skilled at?" I go, "I can carry stuff and I can swing a hammer." And he's like, "Okay, well, we'll put you on. We'll start you at this much. Make sure you're there at this time of the day." So I did construction, building, framing houses, doing carpentry for about, I don't know, 5 to 6 months. And I realized it wasn't for me. And I grew up in a live music venue. My brother owned a live music venue when I was growing up. So I always had like an inside like fire to like be in that environment. I saw that we were opening a new event center, and they were looking for bar staff. And me growing up in a pub and growing up in a bar atmosphere, I was like, sure, I could probably go do this. So I went and applied for this bartending gig, and worked at a live music venue for a bit. But the whole story is, for the next 6 years, I waited tables, I delivered pizzas, I washed dishes, I was a bus boy, I was a host at a restaurant, I was a valet attendant, and all this culminated to me working at a piano bar. And the door guy at that piano bar was playing college rugby, and he was playing at Palmer College. And we became good friends. And he went through a knee surgery and really struggled through that time of his life. And I stayed close to him. I made sure he was eating, made sure the dog was being put out, made sure that he was looked after. And he went on to become a chiropractor. And we sat down one Sunday watching American football. And he goes, "Jim, what do you want to do with your life?" I was 30 years old at that time. I said, I don't know, man. Uh, I just, I think I want to make documentary films. And he's like, well, I'm going to see to it that that happens. And we stuck together. It was about 4 months later. He was finishing his degree. His knee was healing up. By the way, he got MRSA in his knee and had a PICC line in his arm with antibiotics going to his heart because he got so sick from the infection.
Wow.
So that's why, you know, as me being his friend, I was really by his side, watching out for the dog, watching out for himself, and making sure his girlfriend was bringing him food. And the whole story goes, he goes, hey, man, what do you want to do? I see you doing a really good job here at the bar. You're one of the most popular bartenders in the Quad Cities area. And but I see your life is starting to it's not going anywhere. He goes, how about you come up and help me work at my chiropractic office I'm about to open in Arlington Heights, Illinois, which is, you know, 45 minutes outside the center city of Chicago. I go, bro, I don't know shit about chiropractic except for I feel better when I get adjusted. And chiropractic started in Davenport, Iowa, which was my hometown. He goes, that's perfect. That's all you need to know. I'll teach you everything else that you need to know. So my journey started at 30 years old, 12 years ago. I worked in his office, learned everything, got to the point where I was doing massive work at that one clinic doing, I peaked at 500 traction setups a week. So I was a traction tech doing chiropractic biophysics. And I was one of the top in the nation doing that work. Another office reached out to me and said, hey, Jim, do you want to move out to Denver and bring your talents out here and upstart a chiropractic biophysics office with me? I'm going through the certification process. And I said, well, I'm kind of burned out of being in Chicago. I'm not making that much money. And the guy's like, I'll give you more. I go, okay. So I left Chicago, went to Denver, and upstarted a new clinic, worked there for 18 months. And then I went out and I said, you know, I'm just going to start selling chiropractic services because that's what I was trained to do also. I was trained to go out to different like weekend events and find new patients. And I was outperforming all of them. Like I was outperforming both doctors. I was outperforming anybody else they could send out there. And I was like, called up my other best friend who is a musician, and he books himself out. He's an amazing guy and small business guy, but a musician, one man band at the time. And he's like, why don't you just do what I do? I go, well, what do you do? He's like, well, I have this paper calendar booklet and I book gigs every weekend. And I try to get them on Tuesday night and I try to get them on Thursday night. And I book myself out for about 20 gigs a month. He goes, why don't you just reach out to the area chiropractors in Denver and book yourself for, if you tell me you're the best chiropractic salesman on planet Earth, go out there and do it. He's like, go out there and find 30 clients and go out there and book yourself solid. And that's what I did. I went out and I found 600 events in the next 2.5 years. And I scheduled in over 3,000 patients. And I just dedicated my life to telling the story, to scheduling new patients, to saving lives. And through the process of that, we made our first film. And yeah, that's kind of how it all came to fruition. And that's kind of the journey of life for me right now. And 12 years later into the profession, I realized, how can I add more value? Well, 3.5 years ago, I realized that the thing that was popular, that was starting to have traction in the media world, was podcasting. And I'm like, well, how can I be the most consistent podcaster in chiropractic? How can I become an influencer and an industry transformer and tell the story more than anybody else? And now 900 interviews later, that's where we stand.
Extraordinary. There's a theory and a belief of mine. The purpose of this life is to cultivate your soul to make the next one even greater. And that's done through contribution. And yes, you may have touched 3,000 plus, well, obviously way more than that lives now, but it's the ripple effect of that, isn't it? It's that person who goes into that home and it changes that home, that environment, that work, that trajectory of life. And And I suppose it just came from saying yes. Just like you saw an opportunity and you said yes. Was that a scary thing to do?
Absolutely. Oh my God. Um, when I stepped away from a regular every other week check with my bonuses, and I decided I was going to start my own little marketing agency where I was doing grassroots efforts, and I'd go out to farmers markets and health fairs and county fairs and state fairs and car shows and dog shows and women's expos and all that stuff. I was terrified. I was absolutely scared out of my mind that I would go homeless.
Mm.
And actually, it was December 24th of 2015. I remember vividly. I was supposed to get a bonus so I could go home and see my family. And our goal was 150 new patient or 150 patient visits on that week. And if we hit 150 patient visits, I would have gotten my bonus. And I was disqualified by one. And it was Christmas time, Christmas bonus. I wanted to go home and see my family. And the doctor told me that I wasn't going to get my bonus. And I told him, keep the money. I quit. And I thought I was going to have enough money to float myself through January of 2016. And I was so damn scared. I called up two of the guys that I'd go to lunch with that were other chiropractors in the Denver area. And I called up Dr. Brandon and Dr. AJ. I was like, hey, man, do you guys have any marketing events I can go do for you? I just stepped away from the clinic I was working at. And anyways, they gave me, I think it was 6 or 7 massage events. And I made just enough money to pay my rent in February of 2016 with $3 left to my name.
Mm.
And after that, I never looked back. I just kept on working harder, kept on shaking more hands. And like I did, I filled up my schedule book. And there were months where I'd do 25 screenings a month. And before I knew it, I went from 2 clients to 7 clients to 15 clients to 17 clients to 22 clients to 30 clients. And the word just got out that there was this madman in Denver that was going out there to every event possible. And I would double book myself. I'd triple book myself. I would go do 3 events a day. And absolutely, it all was scary.
Because it's the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are often the ones who can. And I think that's, and I see it a little bit in chiropractic. Some of the new grads that I work with is it's too easy to set up and just pay your overhead. Like there's not enough. There's no sort of driving force, and there's a little lack of that work mentality. I think that people need to put in. They're trying to find the easiest, quickest route to get successful or to get to where they want to. And I suppose you having gone to that, oh shit, I've got to do something or it's never going to fly, is giving you the spark. But does that still motivate you today, or is there something else that's come in to help keep driving you forward with what you're doing?
I just believe in you can't outgive the giver. And I've always given more than I've ever gotten. And I think that that's like the path to fulfillment. I think there's a lot of times where people think because they've achieved something that it's game over. And I think that that's when I show my teeth and put my knuckles up. And I'm like, it's game on. Like we got here now. Let's go again. And I think that you just have to have a fighter's mentality when you come into it. And I challenge anybody to take me. Like, come get some. And
That's
that's what it
good. That's what we
takes.
need. Like that's what the human race needs more of.
Yeah.
Like
And I'm like, come get some. Like, who wants to challenge me? Like there's a spot right out in front of my lawn. Like, let's go.
But wouldn't it be amazing? Like, and it's a funny connotation, and yet it is like we do need a bit of that alpha aggression,
Yeah.
and it creates success. But people get a little bit nervous from it, and we'll go into that in a second.
Good.
But if we think about the back end of this, like in being successful or achieving what you wanted to achieve, it's of benefit and bonus to thousands of people. It's helping people's lives. It's not for just purely selfish material gain. And if we could have your chiropractic offices like I really want to have an impact in my community. I really want to get out and see more people. You know, let's have some friendly competition over this or other. Um, it's healthy, right?
You can't have a victim mindset, number one. And number two, the alpha aggression in me is because I was raised on the streets, man.
Mm.
And I was never given anything. I grew up in poverty. I grew up poor. I grew up struggling with learning disabilities. So any of the stuff that people see coming out of me today is a time capsule of life.
Mm.
And I was always challenged. And whether it was on the athletic field or going to become the first graduate of college in my family, like the reason I have that mentality is because who are you to tell me no? How are you going to tell me that this is the way that the deal's made? No, deals are made because people have intention to make the deal. And when I think about me wanting to go do that, it's some of it's the outcome is based on integrity. And if you have enough integrity to say yes, then you should go do the damn thing. And I think that that's what a lot of people think about, especially chiropractic growth, is, oh gosh, there's a guy down the street, he's going to take my patients. Well, if you suck, he will. And if you don't show up the right way, they will. And if you don't have good retention strategies, they will. And if you don't have good reactivation strategies, they will. And you deserve it. And that's the thing, is everybody wants to cry a river that, oh, poor me. No, you have to become vigilant with your initiatives to not fall backwards. And the great Les Brown said, if you fall down, at least fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up.
So
And
true.
and that's kind of the way that I take this like mindset of, you don't have time. Time is of essence. And what you do today it will dictate what happens tomorrow. And I think that so many people want other people to feel bad for them and their feelings are hurt. Well, it's time to get a little bit tough. And that's kind of my initiative for everybody in the chiropractic space is, yeah, if you don't do the work, somebody else will do it for you.
Yeah, and you got to do the work, and you got to do the work for other people. Like you've got to have that little bit of selfless drive as well, because people. I think the reason they give up is, I, th- I think it's Ed Milet's people's will to win can be bought. You may have heard that people's will to win can be bought. Essentially, um, you build your practice to a space where you're comfortable, you're happy, and then you say I can stop. Or what did Sid Williams? I think Sid Williams said, um, "Comfort comes as a guest, it lingers as a host, and it stays to enslavers. Comfort comes as a guest, lingers as a host, and stays to enslavers." Like you can be comfortable with chiropractic, but are you really making the difference that is possible? Like you could have been really comfortable compared to growing up on the streets just by going every 2 weeks paycheck with bonus.
And actually, I've always adopted the idea. I guess I was probably 27 when I adopted the idea that eating healthy was very important and staying hydrated ultimately was very important. And taking good supplementation for my health was ultimately important. And spinal health was ultimately important. So I started it out at the end of my 20s, realizing some of these fundamentals were so important. But I was still, here's the real truth in it all, though. I was abusing alcohol still. So I was out 3 to 5 nights a week abusing alcohol because I was working in that industry. Even though I was going to the gym 3 days a week, I'm happy to say now that I'm pushing on the 27th of this month. It will be 2.5 years of alcohol free. So we're far greater than what we give ourselves permission to be. And like you said, comfort is something that, and don't get me wrong, all the things I've said, I have the biggest loving heart in the world. And I'm the biggest contributor to other people's lives that I can be. But I also have a standard for myself. And I don't live on a meme, or I don't live on like somebody else's quote. But I do think that we have to give ourselves permission to be great. And I think so many people give themselves permission to be mediocre.
I agree, and I I like what you said there, and I do want to add weight to that. You are one of the nicest people I've ever met. You are one of the most caring people that I've ever met, and you genuinely give so much. For people who don't know you, who are just listening to this podcast, I've seen it with what you do. But I think the danger of that and the importance of us having this conversation is that people would believe that you've got to where you've got by just an easy token and just taking it steady. Because you know, when you meet you in person, you're a calm, relaxed person. But underneath there's a real fire, there's a passion, there's a desire, and there's I will make this happen attitude. And I think that's important, that ability to be really relatable to people, which is probably why you've been able to book so many schedules, but then have that relentless attitude behind it has been a key to your success.
Well, I believe in gamification for myself. If I tell myself I'm going to go out today and I'm going to get 30 new patients, I go out today and I get 30 new patients, hell or high water. And I also have been, where was I? Oh, I just went to a mastermind in Puerto Rico, and I was around 75 other world changers. And one of the guys that does chiropractic marketing, he's a ad agency guy. And he's like, you know, you actually, you interviewed me the first time that anybody ever interviewed me. I was like, cool. I was like, I'm glad I could, you know, shine a spotlight on you and give you some, you know, some attention. And he goes, the thing I just noticed about you though is you're so calm. Like everywhere you go, you're like super, super calm. And you like have this like vibe to you that you're just so relaxed. I go, I don't know. I guess I chose that. Like, I don't want to look like I'm uneasy or I don't have stability. And I think that, you know, if you carry that calmness with you, it's okay to have fire inside of you. And it's okay to have these things that are inside of us. And it's okay to be perceived as calm too.
What would be some habits that you say are integral or important for people to if they want to try and make a change, if they're like, okay, actually, it's time for me to step into my greatness, or it's time for me to stop making excuses and really do something with this. Like, what would be some tips you'd give them? What would be some strategies that you say, you know what, if you just did this, this, and this, and it's not like the secret 7 steps to success. It's like, what are the practical things people need to do to make a change?
Well, I'll tell you, it was 2 years, 3 years ago now. I went out to Alaska and I did the Alaska State Fair, which was 12 days long. And I scheduled in 232 people in 12 days. And I thought that was good. But what I did is I earned quite a bit of income doing that. Probably as much in 12 days as most people make in an entire year.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back in 2 years later, or the next year, and we did 534 new patients scheduled in 12 days. And I thought that was really good. And it was. And I still haven't broke that record yet until I come back this next year,
Mm-hmm.
which will be this August. I'll be going to Alaska again. And last year got wonky because of world politics. But the success happened because I took the income that I made and I invested in joining an inner circle, which was a group of high-level influencers, all in network to change the world and their own lives. And I also invested in this elite men's group. And I went and did this intense training and learned daily habits. And I focus on daily habits. And I haven't skipped a day. The past 2.5 years, I've meditated 20 minutes every day. We do the 4 Bs, which are body, business, balance, and being. And I'll break those down to you. So every day is gamification. So every day for my my being, I meditate, I pray, I do affirmations. I get a half point for each. Obviously, I'm an overachiever, so I do the 3. My body, you have to work out, do something physical. It could be 25 push-ups to a marathon, but I do hiking, cycling, yoga, weightlifting. I don't do those every day, but I at least do one of those activities every day. You have to eat something or drink something green. It could be a green juice, it could be asparagus, it could be a salad. So you get a half point for each. So now I get 1 point for my being, I get 1 point for my body, and now I'm going to 4 points. So the next one is balance. I'm going to reach out to 2 people. They could be colleagues, they could be my significant other, they could be family, and I'm going to send them a message just to check in on them. So I'm going to pick 2 people each day. It could be a FaceTime, it could be a Zoom, it could be a text message, it could be a phone call. But I'm going to reach out to 2 people every day. And that keeps the relationships with people healthy. And then comes business. I'm going to read something, I'm going to watch a YouTube video, I'm going to read an article, I'm going to jump on a mastermind call, something, a coaching call, and I'm going to learn something for my business. And then I'm going to teach or declare it or post about it. So I'm consistent with those habits every day. And then I would create a revelation at the end of the day, and I post back to the accountability group in the thread, and I say, this is my revelation, and this is what I did for my daily habits. So having daily accountability, I would tell people, is the number one thing to pushing yourself forward and to see how you interact with a unit. And there's no days off. So it doesn't matter if it's your birthday, it doesn't matter if there's a death of the family, you show the fuck up.
It's true. Like I'm a big fan of daily habits, and mine is similar to yours. Accountability, 100%. Find people who aren't just your friends, people who are actually going to push you. I think is a big deal on that one. People try and just buddy up with their pals. And then I love reminding myself that 30,000 is the most significant number in our lives. Like it's the average number of days that any human being gets.
Wow.
The average number of days that any human being gets is 30,000. It's 82 times 365. And if, 82 times 365, Jim, you just talk about you being, 40, half that, 15,000. And when you said there, no days off, like today is not repeated tomorrow, is it? Like it's not coming back. So why sit on your ass and do nothing? Like, come on. Like people say, oh, take a break and rest. And it's come on. Like,
well, the thing is imagine me being in your accountability group. Like I hold men to a high standard because I hold myself to a high standard. And even in the group, when we join together with the two groups together, they know that I'm going to push people. They know that I'm going to be the catalyst inside of the group of 10 that makes sure that if somebody's not on the call, I'm digital door knocking. I'm like, where the hell are you? Show up. And I think that that's what a leader does, is they see somebody else getting a little bit soft and they harden them up. And that's only because of, iron sharpens iron and we become forged. And we have to forge ourselves into a harder version of ourselves in order to be a better leader. And when you have accountability, you talk about this, here's something that's really interesting. I just found out. The average millionaire is 62 years old. So we have these people in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s that go out there and act like they've had it made. Bullshit. Like, wait till you're 62 and then tell me how you've made it. And I think everybody wants to be seen as some like there's some glamour life, or they live inside of an Instagram feed. No, you live inside of your own life. And if you really want to measure success, tell me what you're at 62.
Yep. You just blew me away with that one. I was going to ask something. That's what I was going to ask. And it fills in exactly with what you said. Tell me 62, because you've become very successful in the podcast world in chiropractic, but you haven't stopped. Like I said in your intro, you've now gone, okay, there's something else here. And you've started the new podcast, Influencer Authority. Tell us where that came from and what's the idea behind that?
Well, I was pissed. I I spent some time over the past 5 months creating a podcast training course, and I hired a marketing guru and a team to help me launch this thing. And he got me to the point where, I paid the fee, I went through the coaching calls, I created the whole program, and I got to the point where it's ready to market and launch this thing. And he's like, "Well, you don't get it. You have to create another podcast." I'm like, "No, I don't want another job." And he's like, "No, you have to do this to prove concept." And I go, "Okay, it's going to be on my rules, and we're going to do it this way." And he goes, "What are you going to call it?" I go, "I don't know. I think the easiest group to get people to say that they want to do something from is being influencers or somebody that's an authority." He goes, "Well, I'm going to buy the domain for you right now." And we bought Influencer Authority Podcast. And the next thing I know, I have my team starting to create graphics for it. I have my team starting to create promos for it. And I now released yesterday our first 4 episodes. And we'll see where it takes us. But to prove to people that they can do anything that they want to, and to show people that what we've created actually works. Because what we did is we bought 3 different courses, and I went through another 2 podcast training courses, and I took a little bit from each. I Frankensteined it to
Mm-hmm.
where I had my absolute plan and what I would buy for myself. So we compartmentalized it down. What would you pay for this part, Jim? Well, about $300. What would you pay for that part, Jim? Well, about $300. And what would you pay for that part, Jim? Oh, about $300. So what are you going to sell it for? Oh, $997. Okay. So if I would buy in with my own finances into this program, that's how I created it. So I created it for the end user. But then I've been creating Cairo Hustle for me as the producer for the 900 episodes that we've made. I said for Influencer Authority, I'm going to make it for the consumer because I know the average commute time is 16 minutes.
Mm.
I'm going to create a show that's 16 to 20 minutes long. And I'm going to create a show that's going to be user friendly, that people will consume the whole content. And that's how we decided to create Influencer Authority Podcast, was for not the producer, but for the listener. So I switched the paradigm around from the producer creating a show that I wanted to the end user creating a show that people would want.
I love it. And I'm excited to dive into it and hear all about it and listen to it. So, and thank you. And that is my commute time, 16 minutes. Jim, great stuff today. And thank you for taking your time. Um, what, yeah, if you had to leave our audience with some real pearls of wisdom, um, something to really tangibly take away from today, what would it be?
I have a couple things I'll share with you briefly. I don't know where I picked this up, but over the past, 2 years, I heard something, and it's people lie, numbers don't. And I've never been like a stats man until I started chasing numbers. And I wasn't really a mathematician until I could wrap my head around that numbers equaled finances. And I think that when people also they think about their day to day, there is a great quote that I've always lived my life by since I found it, is that what I do today is important. It's because I'm exchanging a day of my life for it. And if people stepped into their day with that mindset, I think they would be a lot less feeling sorry for themselves, and they'd be a lot more intentional. And they would hit the pillow at night and they'd feel like, wow, I really got what I could out of that day. And I think, like you say, you have 30,000 days at 365 times a year for 82 years. I really believe that if people want to maximize that, they have to really pay attention to the relationships that they build over that lifetime. And that's why you should follow those daily habits that I do and reach out to 2 people every day and tell them you love them. If you told 5 people every day that you love them, your life would change immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Tell 5 people every day in your phone, just reach out and send 5 people every day, I love you, it would change your life and theirs.
So true. Jim, thank you ever so much for being on the show. And I'm excited to hear what the feedback from our audience is, because they're going to take something away from this that they can actually do, which is brilliant. If they want to find out more about you, where can they get hold of you?
You know, I get quite a few messages daily through Facebook Messenger. So if you guys wanted to reach out, Facebook Messenger is a good place. Or we have a website, chirohustle.com, where we have a inquiry page where you can send messages to us. So if you forget my name, you won't forget Chiro Hustle. And you can go to chirohustle.com. That's chirohustle.com, chirohustle.com. And you can send us a message to that website. And if you guys want to find me on Facebook, it's Jim Chester. And I'm in a blue suit with my hand up like this. So you guys can see me and interact with me. And if you want to do a show with me, I'd love to have you on our show as well. And you'll catch Dr. Tom and I on a Chiro Hustle here coming soon. So love and appreciate you, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.